I was able to spend another amazing spring in the Sonoran Desert, and even with all the flooding, it was still hard for me to finally have to say goodbye. But it was time. My time had ended, and it was time for me to start migrating back north. We were late in the season, and I thought for sure we would be over all the winter storms. But, climate's changed, and we weren't anywhere close to being over the winter storms. There were so many surprise storms that hit along the way. I was really lucky. I was able to somehow skinny in and out of each one of these storms and still make it from the southwest to the northwest in 3 days. I really wanted to share this with you, so let me show you what you could see, because some of this, because of the winter storms, was unique. The historic Navajo Bridge was built in 1927, and it's just 5 miles away from Lee's Ferry, where the original settlers would cross. If you're really lucky, you're going to be able to see the condors here, and this was the absolute first time in all my years in Arizona that I was able to see a condor in real life. And I think what's really amazing, if you can see them, is how quiet they can be when they're just hanging in the air. And then the other thing that you're going to notice is when they decide to fly away, how incredibly fast they are. And if you forgot trinkets, hey, you're in luck, because there's a visitor center there. It has some really nice stuff in it. There's a lot of hiking and things to do around here, but I'm on a schedule, so I had to skedaddle. Yet if you wanted to go over to Glen Canyon Dam, 42 minutes, because you have to drive back out of the canyon and then go up to the dam. If you wanted to hike it, I guess it's a day hike along the rim. The Navajo Bridge opens up to the Vermilion Cliffs on the north side, and these, I bet if you have time, you're going to want to hike this area, because this is beautiful. With my 3-day schedule, I didn't have time, but this little spot here, it's a few miles from Marble Canyon. It actually has a motel if you really wanted to try it and stay there. From Marble Canyon, it's a little bit over an hour to get to Fredonia in Utah, which was our next stop. Here, look at this part of the drive. We're on this plains area. We're coming into the Kaibab Forest, and this is how you can get into the northern side of the Grand Canyon. What's really unique is if you stop at that first turnout on the hill going up into the Kaibab Forest, this is what you're going to see. And what I really like about this is that you get to see that dusty sky blue, those dusty roses that are so much about the coloring of the desert. As we headed into the Kaibab Forest and to the north entrance of the Grand Canyon, the north entrance is still closed, and there was still snow on the ground. Still on your way to Fredonia and exiting the Kaibab Forest, this is what you'll see on the east side of the forest. It's a little curvy coming out of the mountains, and then it just opens up into this really flat, beautiful desert again. we needed gas, and we were able to find a gas station in Fredonia. Now, my husband and I were not big planners, so we were just driving. And as we headed off north into Utah, we decided that we'd try and stay the night at Bryce Canyon. We're off season, so we're kind of thinking that we'd be able to find motel rooms. What we're doing right now, I wouldn't do this during peak season because I'm pretty sure you'd be sleeping in your car if you did this. But we thought we'd have a pretty good chance of finding places to stay. We came across Smoky Caves, and that used to be an old Anasazi ruin. It was purchased and made into a speakeasy. So what's ever Anasazi about it is what you're seeing right there. And then they talk about these sand caves, and these sand caves were man-made in the 70s when they were drilling for glass. And so this didn't really interest me, but let me tell you what might interest you. You can actually rent off-road for ATVs for 4 to 6 hours. And that might be a lot of fun. And being that I'm bringing that up, one of the things that I'm sure they're going to say, and what I would really recommend, is that stay on the roads or stay in washes. What people don't realize is when they travel, when they run their vehicles into the desert, off the roads, off the washes, the damage that they do to the desert is really permanent. I wanted to share that with you because a lot of the places that I used to be able to hike into without a problem are being closed down to tourists because they're not respecting the natural areas. We have another hour to get to Bryce Canyon, so this is what you're going to see on that last hour. And one of the things that kind of surprised us is that there's snow because it's the absolute last day of March and we weren't expecting any snow, and yet here it is. As we got closer to Bryce, it actually got snowier and snowier, which we totally weren't expecting, and your cell service is a little bit spotty. So we're halfway to Bryce, and this is when I decided to call to see if I can find a room for us for the night. It took almost the whole half hour to try and get that reservation made because the service was so spotty there. And we weren't really sure we were going to be able to find a room. We thought we might have to keep on going because we couldn't get through on our cell phone. So think that one through too when you're trying to get your reservations. To get to Bryce, you actually have to turn off of 89 onto Highway 12. So keep your eyes open for that. And it's probably like another 20 miles. And this is what you're going to see on Highway 12. One of the things that was really surprising is this snow. It is unusual. It was like a freak snowstorm. As we get into actual Bryce, you're going to see that there is a lot of snow. The whole park was almost closed down. They were trying to open up the lodge in Bryce. Really having a hard time. Welcome to Bryce Lodge. They're opening up in 2 hours. So in 2 hours from right now, this lodge is supposed to be open, and it is buried in snow. They're still trying to open up the septic. There is a ton of workers around here just trying to get this place opened. With most of the park being closed, you could only stop at these overlooks, and 4 of the overlooks were open. Inspiration Point is going to be the first one that we ran into. And here's the interesting thing about these points is they plowed and cleared off as much as they could, but there's a huge part of these points that were not cleared off and were still buried under 3-4 feet of snow. And so the other interesting thing is they didn't caution them off. You could walk up there. We weren't in the correct hiking shoes or anything like that. And this snow, it was super packed and it was really icy. And with the melt, it was even icier. So we were in tennis shoes, which was like wearing skis on this stuff. And yet, me and every other tourist out there was braving the skiing slopes, thinking that we weren't going to go zipping off into the canyons. This one was the worst of it. And you can see the fence, the guardrail is almost completely under snow. And yet, everyone was still willing to risk their life and try to snow ski down to the edge of this. About 30 years ago, my sister and I, we would always go out and hike the Grand Canyon. We would put in for our permits the year before, and we'd plan for the year on hiking into the canyon. We would always call the first 100 yards the flip-flop and cigarette zone, because after you got past that first 100 yards, then you were into nature. You didn't have to be around all these noisy tourists who were completely in the wrong hiking gear, which it was really funny, but I felt like I was that flip-flop cigarette zone tourist person out at Bryce this time because I had on completely the wrong gear. I seriously thought I was going to kill myself out there on those stupid icy paths. And that one was seriously the worst because coming into it, it was pure ice. So you were literally ice skating to get to the snow. But what this did is it made me rethink the equipment, or at least the shoes that I need to wear, because my husband and I, we plan on doing this a few times, and I have tried a lot of hiking shoes. They don't deal with snow and they don't deal with water. So I'm going to do some research. If I find a good pair, I will share that with you. And, if you have a good pair, it would be great to read what you're using in the comments below. And thanks for sharing. Wow, it's time to get back on the road again. And we're going to head up to Salt Lake City where we're going to spend some time around Salt Lake. We ended up stopping in at Willard Bay on the north side of Salt Lake City, and like every place else, they're getting a lot of water too. But you know what? One thing that we both started to notice was that the weather was changing on us. And the clouds were coming in, and it looked like a storm was coming in, and we weren't anywhere near the passes in Oregon. This lake's enormous. And you know what they're saying about this lake? Is that just like Lake Powell, this lake is draining off too. And if I hadn't have seen Lake Powell, I would never have believed it. And seeing Salt Lake right now where it's at, it really concerns me that in 10 years, it could be something as small and fragile as Lake Powell. The weather had us concerned, and we had to get out of there because we wanted to make Twin Falls by nightfall. And we still were trying to get over the passes before a major weather storm came through, because our chances of getting over the pass with a weather storm were 0. It was looking worse and worse for us, and we weren't prepared for snow. I think we had like summer tires on. We had no studs, no chains. So if it was snowing in the passes, we weren't getting through. But 50 miles later, suddenly the weather completely changed, and we were back into these clear skies. We made it into Twin Falls, Idaho, and were able to find some place to stay. The next morning, we were just kind of off. We weren't quite sinking right. We had to get ice for the cooler. And so I went and grabbed ice, filled up our little baggies that we put in the cooler. If we would have thought about it the night before, we probably would have put water in the baggies and put those baggies in the freezer and had it freeze. But we didn't. So next morning, I had to start checking the room. Both my husband and I, we tag team. And look at that, I forgot my glasses. Oh, wow, forgot my shampoo. And so now I'm a little panicked because we're really uncoordinated this morning. So I'm going to check the bed one more time. My husband's coming behind me and checking the room too, because 2 eyes are better than 1, but I think we got everything. So I think we're ready to go. And no, I forgot the baggies of ice. So we're hoping when we get in the car that the rest of the day will not be so discombobulated. And surprise, it's snowing out. So now we don't know if we're going to make it over the pass. I'm going to change my shoes into boots because I know those tennies don't work in snow. Maybe these will work better. Now we're really worried because getting over that pass in Oregon is going to be really tough. And so today is the day that we're supposed to get over that pass. And we still want to see one thing. So we talked about it last night and we decided we were going to do Shoshone Falls, you know, those famous falls over the Snake River. And there's a Shoshone Falls State Park that you can drive to. So if you're on the speed dating game to hook up with as many sites as possible in Twin Falls, Idaho, then I would hit the Shoshone State Park and drive into that and do a quick drive-by to see these beautiful falls. So here's some of the things that we saw while we were there. Okay, that was our last pit stop technically until we get home. So we are on the last leg.
8 more hours to go.
Is it 8 or is it 9?
9 hours. 8 hours, 51 minutes.
I mean, after 8 hours, you know who's counting, right? So here we go. The weather actually has kind of turned against us. It's been snowing. So we've got to go over the pass. And it's a little bit different when you get into the Northwest. You talk about passes, and when you're down in the southern states, you talk about going through the mountains. In the Northwest, you talk about passes because those are technically very, very dangerous. So we've got to go over the pass today, and not sure how that's going to go. Oh, there's that waterfall again. Into a little bit of a stream there. So we've been getting really lucky with the weather. For some reason, we got out of Twin Falls in not more than 20 minutes, and the weather completely cleared up. It's been clear. It's been really, really nice, and we're just heading into the pass. It looks a little bit dark on the pass, but unfortunately, what we just heard from everyone from back home is that it's snowing. It never snows in April there. So it's snowing, and we're really concerned that we're going to get 2 hours away from home, and the snow is going to change it to 4. And this is already, 9 hours. We started heading over the pass, and the weather did turn against us. And then it broke again. So we decided, because the sun actually came out and it looked like smooth skies in front of us. And so we decided to stop at 5 Points Creek and, just take a brief break and stretch our legs before we started on the rest of our journey. We kind of feel like we've been lucking out because these storms, they've just been chasing us, and either we're just barely making it around them, or they're just on our tail, or they just were in front of us. And here we go. We head off from 5 Points and we're back into weather again. So we started watching our thermostat to see what the temperature was outside. So it's 32 degrees, and a minute later, it's 30 degrees, and we've got sleet. Our biggest concern is this is going to turn into black ice, especially on the bridges. With our cool summer tires, we are pushing the absolute max of what these tires can do. And then all of a sudden we got sun again. And it looks like the rest of our drive home is going to be a party and a beautiful drive through the gorge, beautifully sunny as we drive along the Columbia River the rest of the way down into Portland, Oregon. And that works out perfectly because if you're doing that speed dating through the sights of the Pacific Northwest, there's one more site that I wanted to show you in the Columbia Gorge, and that's Multnomah Falls. Let's race down there so you can see one more beautiful falls. I wanted to show you Multnomah Falls, but it ends up, this rain that I've been ignoring because it goes away every 50 miles is not going away. It's really bad. So Multnomah Falls is over there, and that's the closest we're going to get to it. And I want to thank you for coming out. This is by Rooster Rock. The falls coming off the mountains were just amazing. So it really would have been great to see them. Thanks for coming out and sharing this journey with me. And until next time, I will catch you on the other side.